Babel by David Berger, of Lawson, 2783. Narrated by Lex Marinos. A myth is not a fairy tale. It is a genuine attempt by our intelligent ancestors to make sense of the world they live in. For example, why are there so many languages in the world? Was there originally one language, given by God, or created by humans? The story about the ancient city of Babel, which the Greeks Hellenized to Babylon, is an example of a myth that seemed to explain why we all speak differently and cannot understand each other. So a myth is not a falsehood, although it is not true. Over time we modify it until what it tried to explain becomes closer to scientific reality. The other day, I left my house in the Blue Mountains to go to our little town shops. We have one road in and one road out. We're surrounded by bush. This is Aboriginal Australian country, home to the Darug people. Yet here I can go to the bakery and see Alex, the French baker. Bonjour, Alex. Ça va? I say. Bonjour, ça va bien, he replies. So things are fine. And I go to the small family-run Lebanese supermarket and see Sami. Mahaba Sami, kif halek? Mabshut shukrun. Tomatoes, I must get some off the fruit and veg, so I see Stefania and say, Buongiorno Steffi, come sta? Va bene, she replies. Time for a quick beer, and I see Bernie having an ale. Bernie, wie geht's? Es geht mir gut, danke. A glass and then off with a friendly tuss. On the way, I call to see my Israeli friend. She helps me with my Ivrit, Hebrew. Shalom Esther, manishmach. Hachol beseder, she replies. It's so nice to have just a few words in different languages, as using them always brings a friendly smile. Today, we can celebrate the diversity of languages and enjoy their varying sounds and the cultures, food, and music from which they have sprung. Herodotus called people who could not speak Greek barbarians because their language sounded like ba. Before Herodotus, the father of history, or the father of lies, as some say, there were the Hebrews. They believed that there was only one original language and all mankind used it. Because the Hebrews were telling the story, then the original language was, of course, Hebrew. To explain the diversity, they created the Babel myth. God got jealous of mankind's building activities, and to get revenge on us, he confounded our tongues, so we could not understand each other, and we scattered to different regions. Well, no real linguist believes that, but the myth served a purpose and made sense to the people who wrote and edited the Bible. The idea that languages were somehow related appealed to Europeans of the Enlightenment. Their linguists realized that Sanskrit, Greek, and Latin were similar in their vocabularies and grammars. Just as most modern European languages, the descendants of the Big Three are remarkably similar. This similarity was given the name the Indo-European family of languages. In the mid-18th century, the Berlin Academy of Sciences offered a prize for the best essay on the beginning of language, specifically to show whether or not it was a gift from God or not. People became excited over the possibilities. But 100 years later, the Linguistic Society of Paris declared that finding the original human mother tongue, la langue maternelle, die Muttersprache, la madrelingua, was impossible. To compound this issue, as 19th century explorers and colonizers expanded around the world, it was soon discovered that the Indo-European family was only one of many other linguistic families. People realized that all language families must have developed from a proto-world language, so the researchers tried to go back even further. But the problem was that they could not find any evidence for this idea. The best that could be done was to hypothesize that human languages originated in Africa. and began to emerge from that continent at roughly the same time as the human exodus began, the out of Africa theory of evolution of about 150 to 200,000 years ago. There's an interesting connection between human genomes and language. The closer we are in our DNA, the closer are our languages. For example, French, English, Dutch, and German, as opposed to English and Chinese. A startling discovery followed. There are about 1,200 African languages, and the human genome variety amongst Africans is vastly greater than in any other social group or ethnicity. Another intriguing finding is that every human baby is born being able to produce the sounds of every language, but as it grows and hears usually only one language, it loses its ability to make the special sounds required in other languages. That is perhaps why it's easier for prepubescent children to learn a foreign language than it is for adults. A sad thing is the death of a language, and we can't know how many hundreds of indigenous languages around the world disappeared. Even the southern French Languedoc, the speech of the troubadours, has recently disappeared. On a greater scale is the loss of Aboriginal languages. I've met some Darug people, but they only seem to speak English. Linguists now recognize that languages are never uniformly spoken. We are familiar with dialects within a language, but other factors can differentiate speakers. Age, sex, education, profession, class, and geography also affect any one language. This means that languages are forever changing, and an old grump like me who shudders at certain pronunciations or malapropisms should shut up and remember that we don't speak the Old English of Beowulf or Chaucer's Middle English anymore. It's intriguing to listen to young people speak. Let's rejoice in the wonderful world of language difference and celebrate linguistic diversity. The myth of Babel has not gone away. We're still in the dark about language origins. So let us celebrate that ancient story of the ziggurat of Babel. The end.